Hello, world. It is now 2024. My goodness. And yeah, I'm excited to do office hours today. So let me get things up and going, and then we can um, get things rolling. Okay,
Hello,
I'll
world.
pause that. There we go. And stick this right here. Office hours starts now. And I will share my screen in just a second. Okay, let me share screen, desktop 2. Boom, there we are. And this is Office Hours. Welcome. I'm excited to have you here. We are going to be discussing whatever you want. I've got a couple of questions already, or maybe I do. Actually, I don't know that I do. I think I've all answered all these. So, yeah, we're going to just have to wait a little bit to see if anybody wants to join in. I was going to post on the social medias that this is starting up. I think yep, my bot did this. Um, starting back up after the holidays. Come join and ask. And yeah, uh, yeah, and you're going to want to join and ask on Discord, because this is where we do that. I ignore the YouTube comments. So if you're like, oh, sweet, I'm going to ask Kent a question in YouTube comments, I will not see it because I'm not even going to go with it over there. And yes, Sentry is so freaking good. Yeah, it is good. Okay, cool. Well, so yeah, basically the idea is you come with your questions, you can share screen, and or like you can also ask non-technical questions, career related and stuff like that, and I answer. If you do not want to ask during the office hours, then you can always come and ask here on Discord and I'll answer later. Or you can go to the Call Kent podcast, record your question, and yeah, I need to fix this. I don't know why this visualization is not working anymore. But yeah, so you can ask your question there and I will answer. And it turns into a podcast episode. We're on season 4. Each season is 50 episodes long. So we've got lots of podcast episodes in here. All right, with that, Taryn is here. What is up, Taryn? How you doing?
Yo, Happy New Year, man. How are things?
Things are great.
Nice.
Yeah, excited for what the future holds this year. Lots of epic things happening this year.
And April, right? I'll see you in
Yeah,
April.
yeah, it's gonna be great. When are you flying in?
I think the 9th, whatever date you
Okay.
said to come in, and then I'll probably leave on the 12th.
Yeah, yeah, super. You're gonna be here for all the fun stuff. It's gonna be sweet.
Nice.
Um, yeah, I haven't announced anything yet, but it is I'll just say it here. Epic Web Conf is what's happening. Yeah.
I had a feeling. I had a feeling.
Yeah, yeah. So it's the spiritual successor to Remix Conf. It's just bigger, better, awesomer. I am t scaling it back a little bit this year from previous years because this time I don't have a multi-billion-dollar corporation backing things. So if we lose money, then that comes out of my pocket.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do think that it's going to be a pretty sick event. I think I'm going to be I'm going to wish that I hadn't scaled back. So anyway, yeah, it's going to be super fun. And as far as talks and stuff, I'm curating things very closely, and I may open a CFP, but I'm not so certain about that. So anyway, we'll see how all that plays out. But I'm excited that you're already scheduled to come and everything. You're the first attendee. In fact, I think you were the first person to get Epic Web too. So
Yeah.
thank
I'm
you for.
I pulled the trigger fast whenever you got something going. I'm like, yeah, I'm down. Let's go. Let's go check.
I think you'll like it. I think it'll be a good time. I look forward to meeting you too.
Yeah, it'll be cool. I've been following you for like 3, 4 years now, so it'll be kind of cool to meet the guy I've been learning from.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Did you have any questions that you wanted
I
to ask?
actually have a question. Yeah, that's coming up. I have a meeting at work today, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this. Micro front ends,
Okay.
any experience, any thoughts on using them as like an architectural pattern for like larger teams? Yeah, just in general, if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, okay. So I'll preface with my level of experience as I like to do. Basically, not much. I've no, certainly nothing in a production environment. I, I've definitely had lots of conversations with folks who are very knowledgeable about it. And so I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of the problems that it's supposed to solve, but I've not personally felt like I had those problems. And so there you go. There's your giant grain of salt with my answer. So from the conversations that I've had with folks, the micro front ends is intended to solve an organizational problem, which is that the organization's just grown so large that it's very difficult to coordinate the work of many teams, many engineers working on it. We did have problems kind of like this when I was at PayPal. We had a team that was responsible for the header and footer of like the all of PayPal and stuff, and so like coordinating with them was really a nightmare. So I guess that I have kind of felt some of those pains. Um, because the like part of the problem is you say, okay, so you're the team in charge of the header and footer. Like, can you imagine being at a company so large that you need an entire team just for that? But totally you get there. So um, yeah, it's pretty wild. And then you've got like teams in charge of different parts of the app and stuff. And like, yeah, it's just a coordination challenge. Not just in like, okay, so are you deploying or are we deploying? Like, but like, what version of React are we using? And like all these other dependencies, right? Are those some of the pains that you're feeling right now?
Um, Definitely the coordination problem. Like our current situation is such that we have like multiple web apps that are just like spun up and stitched together using like an Nginx config, so like a route, maps to a web app. And so we have like our header and footer as the perfect example as a horizontal concern that is a publishable npm package. So then you have to like go to each web app and update the dependency to get the latest header and footer, which I know is a pain point for the team that has to kind of update the header and footer.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so that is one
Yeah.
of the pain points for sure. But everyone's on different versions of React. Some of it's a little wild. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, that w whenever I hear like, oh, this just solves an organizational problem, I'm like, well, fix the organizational problem then. So, but
That's kind of where I'm at too.
yeah, but honestly, like, it's not an easy problem to solve, because you have to say, oh, okay, well, then we all have to be on this version of React. And then this team is using this dependency, this very complicated data table, something or other, that, yeah, maybe there's a new version that supports the new version of React or whatever, but migrating to that new version is an enormous effort. So, like, nobody can upgrade React now. And so, like, it does make sense that when you're at that scale, you want to be able to move quickly, but you've just got so many different pieces of code that like you can't just have one team working on all of that. Like you want, features built all over the app. And so now you need to have multiple teams. But like you're at the least common denominator of like ability to move quickly. So whichever team can only move at this certain pace because of their constraints, every other team has to move at that same slow pace. And so now you're just slogging. And so
Mm.
yeah, I think I understand why micro front ends are appealing to people. Um, and yeah, so um, I would push against it so hard for as long as I could, but I think that it's reasonable to say no, it's okay. Like we can look at this as a solution. I don't think that it's one of those things that is a made up problem.
No,
I
no, for
guess is
sure.
what I'm saying.
And then,
Uh,
sorry to cut you off. Um, Developer experience. Have you actually like worked with them or just kind of
no, not in a real setting
okay?
at all. But yeah, you basically are fighting against the grain because they're just I mean they are fairly common, but they are definitely an afterthought for everybody. Every library, like everything, they're just not thinking about what does this look like in a micro frontend world. And so like routing is going to be a big challenge. for sure. Like that'll probably be the biggest thing because that's very cross-cutting. And then you're also going to be in a world of hurt with regard to performance because now you've got multiple versions of React on the page and you've got multiple versions of like different libraries and stuff like that. So that can also be a big challenge as well. Um, just something to keep in mind. As far as what technology are you currently using at your work?
So we actually have like our own custom setup for the server side and the client side. Like, so it's just like an in-house bu built like Webpack config for client and server. So
Mm. You are
uh,
rendering on the server though, with React?
we are, yeah. And that's very interesting how they did it. Like, it's actually pretty smart because it was done like 6 years ago or 5, 6 years ago, and it still works. And I was able
Mm.
to piece together what was going on. Um,
Cool.
yeah. So.
Yeah, yeah, that's fun.
I I would argue it would be more valuable to move to like a meta framework and start adopting those best practices rather than moving to a micro front end because I mean, what's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, what, how many routes do you like? How big is your app? Do you really feel like
I'll
it would?
tell you the website. I work at Best Buy.
Oh,
Um,
oh, okay,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I've
But
spent
not
money
Best
on
Buy
your website
US,
before.
Best Buy Canada.
Okay,
Yeah, .ca. Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So I was gonna say I've spent money on your website, but I'm on the .com. So
Yes.
I'm guessing this is a big ad that Brave is hiding.
Yes, it is. It's Oh, don't even get me started.
Yeah, okay. So I mean it's not small. Like this is pretty serious business stuff. So like my first thought is um the header footer example is like the canonical example for why we need micro front ends. Um in a modern meta framework world, Remix or even everybody else who's copied Remix since has and to be clear, Remix copied Ember, so it's not like this is a Remix invention, but like nested routing makes a big impact on a team's ability to do something like this. And so while migrating an app like this over to a meta framework, that is like not a joke. Like that's a huge undertaking, especially since you already have like your Nginx thing that's like this team has this app and this team has this app. But you, because of nested routing, you can have a team that's in charge of the shell, and then you have individual teams that are in charge of different routes, and even individual teams that are in charge of sub routes of that. So like you can have the team that's in charge of this nav, and then you've got like a team that's in charge of just that experience right there. You could have a team that's in charge of this stuff and a team that's in charge of this stuff, and they will not step on each other's toes at all, except they will have to use the same version of React and they will have to use the same version of Remix. And like all of that still can be a challenge. So everything that I said before about making like maintaining versions of stuff still applies even in a meta framework world, whether you with nested routing, regardless of what you're using, like SvelteKit or Quick Start or Solid Start, QuickTime. What do they call that? Quicks. I can't remember what they call a Quicks version of that, but or Remix or Next or whatever. You're not going to be able to get away from that, maintaining dependencies across everybody. So that pain will still exist. That said, I do think that pain is something that is like you can survive, like you can make that work. Like you say, oh, there's this team, they're using this really complicated data table thing that makes it very hard for them to upgrade their version of React.
Mhm.
So like there are things that you could do there. You could actually, even within the context of Remix, you could say, okay, we're going to give you your own version of React. Everything else is using this version. We're going to put you in this funny little sandbox environment where you have your own little version of React. You could make that work. It would be super weird, but like I can imagine a couple ways you could make that work. So if there is that one team that just like, this is maintenance mode, we don't want to do anything with it, but it still needs to work, then you could make that work even in the context of React. Uh, it might involve some funny like plugins and stuff, especially with Remix moving to Vite, you could like do a bunch of different things there. But it's possible. So I'm not saying that's a ship stopper, but it is going to be a problem for sure. Like eventually you're going to run into that problem. The other thing though is um, React like is so slow moving that like they haven't had a release on NPM for over like a year and a half, I think. Yeah. All the releases of React in the last year and a half have been on Canary. So yeah, the last version 18.2 well, oh, I thought that was 100 or 1,164 days, but no, that's not right. It was published a day ago, but that publish was a Canary release. So
Mm,
this, I wish they gave you a better, when was that? 18.2.0. Right here. Boom. 2 years ago. It's not going to tell you. There it is. 614. So yeah, a year and a half ago. Nuts. It's nuts. So, I mean, React is not a fast moving project anymore. Even back in the day, like they've always been very stable. And even when they do make new changes, it's like iterative, so you can still use class components with the latest version. Now, there are changes, there are reasons that some projects can't update and stuff like that. But it's like not super common. Remix is more likely to have some changes, but they also care a lot about your experience upgrading and stuff like that too. So that's anyway, that's just a bunch of thoughts around this concept. Um, my basic premise here is nested routing makes the pains of micro front ends much less. Like coordinating, when you deploy, if you are a what's the word I'm looking for? Disciplined team, then you just say nothing gets into main if it can't deploy. And then anybody can deploy anytime they want. They're like, if it's in main, it's deployable. Boom, that's it. And that's the way it should be, whether you're doing micro front ends or not. That's like through all the years that we've been doing software, if it's in main, it deploys. Life is
mhm,
so much easier that way. So that reduces the challenge of coordinating deploys between teams. You just say, don't put it in main if it can't deploy, and we'll deploy whenever we want. So yeah, I'd say the biggest like the other thing is you will be if you were to say, okay, yeah, we're going to put all of bestbuy.ca into a Remix app, the entire thing, everything goes into there. It will be huge, but that's not necessarily an enormous challenge, especially with the speeds that we have for build times and stuff these days. Like maybe it'll take a couple minutes. Whoopee. Like it probably takes a couple minutes already anyway, to build your stuff as it is. So it certainly will be faster than whatever Webpack stuff you've got right now. Anyway, so
yeah, yeah, we could talk for days about this.
yeah, yeah.
We'll talk in person about this when I see you.
Yeah. But the nice thing about what you have now is that like you don't have to wait for the other team's build for your stuff, right?
Yeah.
But even if you brought everything in together, if you're using modern build tools, then it will build fast. So I don't think that you need to worry about that. And it's only getting faster as well. And on top of that, if the build times were a big problem for you and you wanted to stick with the Webpack stuff, you could look into RS Pack, which is, like not so fast. And you basically get all the same benefits of Webpack. So actually, I would look into that like today.
I have been. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be another concern. Like we bring everybody in, now it's taking forever to build. Another concern that you could have bringing everybody in is the now all of the components, not only so right now you have like these components, these shareable components published to an internal NPM thing. If you bring everybody together, you'll probably want to do it as a mono repo so you can have those components still separate. And anybody making a change to that, they're not publishing anymore. It's just like it's right there. And so that actually, I think that's a benefit because you
Same.
make sure that everybody's on the same page. But it does put a lot of burden on whoever's working on the components, because whereas before they would publish the new thing and then go encourage teams to upgrade, now they can't publish the new thing. They kind of have the burden of making sure everybody upgrades. Like they probably have to do the upgrade themselves as part of their PR from whatever changes they're making. Um, and so the more practical way to do that is to like duplicate the component. And here's the V2 of that component, and now like make everybody upgrade, which is also not terrible. It like it. it's just a different a
Mhm.
different skew on the same problem. And so I wouldn't say that's a huge concern either. Um, yeah, so like working in a single giant repo with what you probably have over 100 engineers working on this app, um, it's gonna be pretty noisy. That's another problem with that is like how do you coordinate all of that stuff? I'm guessing you're using GitHub or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, and like so the issues will basically be worthless because nobody can watch the right issues and whatever. You're probably not using the GitHub issues anyway. Yeah, you've got like some external tool. Yeah. So that's not going to change. I'm just trying to like pull requests are definitely you probably don't have your notifications on anyway. But yeah, but that would be another concern is like it'll just get more noisy being all in one repo. Um, but I mean, like from what I understand, Google has their entire code base in a single repo as well, which like I don't even know how that works. But so like I guess the thing I'm trying to say is another concern people will have is well, like that's just a ton of engineers in a single repo. And yeah, it is. Every like lots of people do this. It's fine. There are tools for working around that. Those challenges. So yeah, after like talking through it scatterbrained like this, I think that um, if you wanted to um, like you're facing a crossroads where you're like, we can go the micro front ends route, or to solve the problems that we have with our Nginx stuff. Well,
Mhm.
actually, first to take the step back, I made an assumption about the problems that you're having. Um, like the you have a UX problem where if I go over here, I'm like, I want to go to learn about the trade-in program. Oh, that's interesting. That did not give me a full page refresh. I was definitely expecting. There it is, right there.
Yeah.
So like as you go to the different sections of the app, we're getting full page refreshes. So there's a UX problem right there that isn't awesome. Um, and but then you have the problem you were talking about where like I have to publish to NPM and now everybody has to download it and everything. And so micro front ends solves both of those problems. So am I getting that right? Like that's the main reason why you're motivated to look at micro front ends?
The motivation, well, yeah, like the one you mentioned about not necessarily the full page refresh. I think they're okay with that trade-off.
Hmm.
But the other one for sure, that is something that's a concern for the team, like having to do these publishes, right? And telling people to go update them because you're relying on the discipline of other teams to go do this, but they might not do it. So then you might have to go do it yourself. And then it's like you go to 8 different repos. So that's definitely
Mm.
like I don't work on the header and footer, don't get me wrong, but I know the team that does, and they're never happy about it, and it takes so long to do these updates. So that's like one of the benefits. But like everything you mentioned about just like fix the organizational problems probably makes more sense if you can do that than moving to
Hmm.
this architecture. Because, I know we're saying this architecture is kind of common, but to be honest, in my career, I've come across it like once, right? And I've
Yeah,
been
yeah.
like 7 years. So I'm a little bit apprehensive about it because it's not something you see every day, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But I see the industry, I see the direction we're all kind of moving in my Twitter bubble, right? And it feels like this isn't necessarily with the grain, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like people have been talking about micro front ends for honestly, it feels like a decade now. For a very long time. Well, okay, maybe not quite a decade, but like almost maybe like 7 years or 8 years. And yeah, it hasn't like taken the world by storm. And there's a very good reason, and that is that it's an enormously complicated solution to a complex problem.
Yes.
But yeah, so um, I would I would push back on it as well. Um, yeah, and it doesn't surprise me at all that the business doesn't care so much about the full page refreshes because when you're Best Buy's size, you don't care so much about UX anymore. You're just like, yeah, people are gonna come to Best Buy. It's fine. Like, yeah, they don't care
Yeah.
about full page refreshes anymore.
Yeah.
And also like that's the way the web was up until like a decade ago, which is, not that long in Best Buy's lifespan.
Yeah.
Maybe it's about half of Best Buy's lifespan, maybe. I don't remember when Best Buy came out, but anyway, Yeah, but the full page refreshes bother me, so I'm gonna talk about that win. So yeah, the I would say that the problem that your header team is experiencing definitely can be solved by nested routing, some meta framework that uses nested routing. And so you're faced with these two options where it's like, let's go this way with Remix and the nested routing, and that will solve both the UX problems that we've got and the problem with the header team having trouble getting people updated. Like it's literally the same code. And what's super cool is as I'm navigating around, I'm not getting full page refreshes. Like the page doesn't go white and then we render this thing again. It actually stays there. That header stays there. The browser doesn't have to redo parsing of all that. Like it is so much better
Yeah.
than what a micro front end could do. And so like I I I I retract that statement. Microfronting can also do pretty well with this, but like conceptually, it's way simpler. And I'm pretty sure that Remix will scale just fine. In fact, very well for that type of use case. And the Remix team is actively working on um, doing things to make it even better for like enormous sites like this. Um, so yeah, I would say that you're at this crossroads, micro front ends or something like Remix. Um, at the end of the tunnel, you're stuck with something that's just like very complicated, and you just have to live with that with the micro front ends. Or you are in this world of Remix with nested routing, and can divvy things up. Like not to say anything about like the beauty that is Remix for state management and everything else, like and progressive enhancement and all of that stuff. It will definitely improve the performance of the site. Um, and in either case, you're going to have to migrate off of your Nginx stuff. Like you don't use Nginx. Well, okay, sorry. For the individual apps, you're not going to have a bunch of different servers for each one of these individual apps. Well, maybe you will. There are lots of different ways that you can do micro front ends. But
I
the fact is that the Remix version will be way simpler. And so I think that it would be worth talking to the team, like especially if that's the one that they're concerned about is like it's just really hard to get everybody to stay up to date. Um, then that problem is very easily solved by nested routing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have the meeting later today, so we'll see how that goes. I'm excited. Because my coworker and I we made like a list of 10 things that we were concerned about and wanted to bring up. And like one thing we
Mm,
haven't even talked about, you and I, is the developer experience. Like
mhm,
that matters to me quite a bit. And I I've worked with Next on a buddy's project and even my own website. I'm using Remix and I know how good the DX is. And I'm not hearing or seeing the same story on the micro front end front, right? It's not, it's just not the same. And
mhm.
that's like very important to me because I want engineers to move quickly. I work on like the product side, obviously on the website, but I care a lot about DX. So that's something I'm also going to bring up today.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest concern that you'll have to deal with is micro front ends allows teams to work as if they are working by themselves, like they're building their own little app. And that's just so nice as a developer. Like I'm not working on a giant app, I'm working on a little app. And nested routing kind of gives you that, but when you step back, you still got that package JSON with like 6,000 dependencies because you have all of these different apps. And so like there's that. Um, React Server components in Remix will potentially help with this a little bit because then you can say, oh, well, this isn't an app. Like you probably have an entire team that is dedicated to
This is my
like
team.
oh, nice. Yeah. So like just dedicated to some of this stuff right here
Yeah.
and maybe this. Like you're not caring so much about the URL and routing and stuff. You're just literally on this page the entire time. You can make this entire thing a server component. And then you have one team that's in, like I'm the Remix app team and I just bring everybody's pieces together. And so you could kind of get a little bit of that, like I'm not working on an app, I'm just working on a component. And it can do all of its data fetching itself, and it's not like bad for performance and all of that stuff. And in fact, like you could ditch that nonsense skeleton potentially as well. But like so there is and all that content layout shift. I'm not ragging on you, Taryn. This is the reality of being in a company that's been building for a long time. But it stinks, right? Like every time I refresh, it's boom, 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 and then boom, eventually.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah,
you hate it, I hate it, the customers hate it, we all hate it. Nobody likes it, but this is the reality of what we're doing. So, like, you could potentially get rid of that, in especially when we're talking about Remix in the future with React Server components. That sort of thing would be a lot easier as well. That could be server rendered. That last bit was probably kind of slow because it's talking to a slow API. You could add caching to that, but if you can't, then that can still be streamed. And that's the cool thing about Remix is it gives you those levers to be able to make those decisions. Anyway, I think that you would be happy with Remix on this app. Remix would definitely, like, even as it stands today, Remix would do a great job with this type of a user experience. And so, yeah,
yeah,
just the biggest concern you're going to get is, I think, from the rest of the developers is, but I like being able to work in my small app. I don't want to have to work in a giant app. And Remix, this would be a giant app.
yeah, for sure. Um, you just sparked another thing in my head. There's no t like with the future story. So like, what's our future look? If we adopt something like Remix, then it's kind of like we offloaded that work about like future enhancements to the framework team, versus us doing our custom setup. It's kind of
Yeah.
we haven't even talked about React server components yet about this,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know what that's going to look like. I saw that we're still using like common JS modules, and
Mm.
like again, like what's the future look like? So I got to bring that up today. But all right, we were talking for half an hour. I gotta go. I got work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all right. One last thing is you're gonna face some people where this is their baby, and you're coming to say, "Hey, I'm gonna kill your baby," and so like just watch out for egos.
Yeah, good point. I'll keep that in mind.
Okay.
So, thanks
Yeah.
so much, man.
Good luck. See ya.
See ya.
All right. Well, that was fun. That was interesting. I've got two other folks here in Zoom. If you're just hanging out, that's also welcome, but feel free to unmute yourself if you've got specific questions, especially since we haven't gotten any in Discord. I am gonna take a look at this really quick. Oh, sweet. We got that. All good. And
Uh,
uh, hey, what's up?
hey, hi Kent, how are you doing?
Good. I'm gonna pronounce your name. It's Jakirat.
Just call me, yeah, just call me Jay.
All right, Jay. How are you?
Uh, I am doing wonderful, a big fan, not gonna lie. Yeah, um, I had this question that um, was in my mind for a while. So I work in a web app, and the server state for the entire web app for our entire web app is managed in a Zustand store currently. And I've been pitching to my team to move to something like React Query for a while. And like recently, our staff engineer has um, like entertained this idea, and I'm working on a POC for that. So what I'm doing is taking one of the modules that we have, one of the complicated modules, and trying to turn that into React Query. And I'll just sort of give you an explanation of like how that module works today, because like I'm having difficulty in like seeing how React something like React Query would fit. So like this is basically a side panel thingy. So you click out, you do some interaction, and a side panel slides in that has a infinite feed in it, and like we fetch like 20 items at a time. And the way we do it currently is like as soon as the side panel mounts, we fire the query, and then we store the 20 different items into our Zustand store. And once that's done, let's say you see 3 feed items and then you close the side panel. Like let's just assume that. And then when you open it again, since you have seen the first 3 ones, we need to remove them from the infinite feed, right? So that's the expected behavior that we have. That instead of seeing the 20 feeds, now you'll see the 17 feeds that are left unseen. And let's say you do this a couple of times, and then you reach the end of the feed. That at that point, we fetch the next page, which is the next 20 routes. So the thing that I have, the thing that's concerning me is like the way we do it in our store right now is like once you have seen something, we remove that. Once you've seen something, we store that in a we store that in a ref somewhere, I think. And once you close that, we just remove these items from our Zustand store. We just remove them, that we don't care about them anymore. And so that way, when the component is mounted again, we check, hey, the store already has this data already in it, so we don't do a new fetch, and we just start showing the data again. And like when you reach we start showing the remaining items in the feed, and once you reach the end, you refetch the next page. So that's how it's constructed today. What I'm trying to do is migrate this to React query. So what would that mean is that I started with, hey, when the component mounts, I will fire this query that will bring me the first 20 items. Now, the thing that I'm sort of struggling with is how to remove these items once I've seen them from the query cache. Once I start once I close the side panel. And the thing is, like, I can technically change the query cache directly, but the problem with that is anytime React query does a refetch or anything like that, then um, like
Your
this
changes get
messes up
blown away.
the yeah. So like this is where I'm sort of struggling with how to architect this. The first idea that I had was that I take React query's response and feed it into another another state variable, and then I'm change that state instead of the React query's cache. But I don't think that's a good idea, considering now we have two sources of truth for the same exact data. So I'm not sure how to go about this, to be honest. And like our company is a very mobile centric company, so we don't have a lot of senior web engineers who like I can bring this up with.
Hmm.
So yeah, this is sort of something that has been going on in my head for a while.
Yeah, okay. So, and to make sure that I understand correctly, the once I've seen it, and I clear the panel, and when I bring it back, I shouldn't see those again. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, what I would suggest doing here is, well, okay, so actually another question, clarifying question. If I open it, I've seen it, and I clear it, and then I refresh the page, then I open it again, should I see it then, or should it not show up even then?
Yeah, so we do have a new mutation. We do have another mutation that marks these things as red.
Okay.
So ideally, if you have seen three posts, we should have fired three different APIs to mark them as red. So when you refresh the page, you should ideally not see that. The thing is that if I the thing that I was thinking as well was that um, like if we fire those mutations as well, but if I reopen the panel, what that would mean is because the data is already cached, um, those three would still show. But like if I have a cache while revalidate policy, then we'll do a refetch. And in this refetch, because the three newsfeed items have been seen, um, they'll be removed. So like, but that's not a that's a sort of a janky experience where you suddenly three items got removed. So yeah. So I guess like to answer your question, we do have a mark as read API that we can use. So technically, with the refresh, you should not see those three items again.
Got it.
But without the refetch, like for a good user experience, we don't want that
Yeah.
flash or when refetch changes this server state.
Yeah, that makes lots of sense. Okay, so first I will say, um, in a remix context, and I'll get back to React Query because I know you're probably not in a position you can like, oh, let's migrate to remix. So in a remix context, the way that I would and sorry, the reason that I think that it's useful to talk about how I would do this with remix is because then this is the way that I would do it, and now let's see how we can do something like that with the technologies we can use. So um, what would happen is as you're scrolling through that and you're seeing these, the mark as red is going to happen. That's going to send that post and it will come back and say, hey, I'm done. And it will revalidate all of the data. So it's going to go back and say, hey, get me the latest list. It'll come back and it'll update the list. So you will get that janky experience that you were concerned about, that you're talking about. And so what you would need to do for that situation is have some place where you're keeping track of the items that are marked as red, or yeah, that are viewed. and make sure that those items stay in the list in the proper position as well. And so like that's definitely a thing that you could do, and you could even do it optimistically as well. So like if you've got a little indicator that says whether or not it's read, like you could, as soon as they see it, poof, it's marked as read, even though the request isn't finished and stuff. So I could imagine doing this in a really elegant way using Remix. You'll probably want to do something pretty similar in with React Query. Though I don't know that it would be necessary to revalidate the all of the data. You could do it that way, and there are potentially benefits to doing it that way, but I don't think that it's totally necessary for you to do that. So like one benefit would be if those notifications change a lot, or whatever these things are, if they change a lot, then at least you would get the latest ones, as they're scrolling through and stuff. That could be nice. But yeah, maybe a thought for another day. So what I would suggest is, as you're marking these things as read, stick them somewhere else in some state, and then you're rendering both of them for this panel view. And then when they hide it, you're gonna still have that. I would just put it in context. I don't think you need to put it anywhere else. But like if you've got Zustan already and you're happy with that, then sure, use Zustan. But you put the ones that have been marked as read. And so then when the panel comes open again, so like there's an argument for having the panel opens again and it just makes the query again. And so then you don't have to worry about that at all. But if you decide, no, we're not going to have it query again, that's unnecessary or whatever, then you just, you have the ones that they've already seen, you just make sure those don't show up
Yeah, just an
in that
intersection
list.
between these two.
Yeah, just do an intersection. Yep, exactly. That is what I would investigate doing based on what you've shared with me. Does that
Cool.
make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. There's actually an added complexity there.
Oh, I'm sure there is. All right.
We sort of have a chart-like system as well, where you can sort of see some of these items as well.
Hmm.
So, and like clicking on these. So for example, if someone sent like, let's assume this is a news feed, right? So if someone sent that a news article from that feed to you into a chat, what can theoretically happen is, let's say they sent you the 14th item in the list in the chart. If you clicked on it, that will open the side pane, and in this case, the 14th item needs to be placed on the top, and then the remaining one would slide down. So literally what we do today is we reshuffle the state around. We splice this we'd splice the 14th index today and like put it on top of the state, so that when it opens up, the feed is in the correct order. So how would you suggest doing something like that in this case as well?
Yeah, that's interesting. So that's not something that's persisted to the database. That's just a client-side only thing that
Yeah,
happens.
that's
So
a client size only
if
thing.
they refresh, the item is right back where it's supposed to be
Yeah.
14th spot.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is one of those situations where you have your server state that should be exactly what the server is. That's what React Query does. It's like, this is what the server said. And then you have your client-side state that's separate. And keeping those two things separate just simplifies many things. And so you'd have your client-side state that says, here's the order that they should appear in. And then the server state that's like, here's the state that I got from the server. And then you combine those in such a way to make it useful for display. So this client-side state stuff can have, here's the order they should be in, here's the ones that should not be shown, or maybe the ones that haven't been read yet, however you want to do that. And you don't have like all of the data in there. You don't want to like denormalize your data, but you just have sufficient data. So here's the ID and the order, and like here's a couple other metadata things about those items. And then yeah, you use the combination of those things for what is displayed. I'm pretty sure what you said that should address that particular problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really nice way of thinking of it, where the ordering is a client state, but the actual data is the server state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem that you have that you're experiencing now with not doing it that way is now the state that you have is out of sync with what's in the server. And so if
Yeah.
at any time, if the server state comes and updates this, now what's displayed is like different from what the user expected. And so that's why you have to do all of this like fancy, oh, we're getting an update, but we already have this in this certain order. We need to make sure that it remains that way or
Mm.
whatever. If you just have those two things separate, it simplifies a lot. I actually, back when I was still doing React query related stuff, um, I had a blog post. This was, um, let's see if I can remember the short URL. I think it's just state, probably, maybe. Yeah, here we go. Here where my basic premise is you don't need much more than context because React Query is going to help you separating the server cache from the UI state. Like you keep those two things separate and everything is just beautiful from there. So yeah, maybe that will be helpful to you as well.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I'll take a look at that article.
Cool. Okay, well, good
Thanks.
luck. Let me know how it
Thank
goes.
you. Yes.
All right, Yushan, I noticed you're in here. Were you just hanging out? Did you have a question?
Yeah, Kent. Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New
Yeah,
Year to you.
I'm just taking out. Yeah, I'm really enjoying your discussions with other people. Yeah,
Cool. Yeah, it's been fun.
learning a lot while listening. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I saw somebody was typing in here, but they stopped typing. So we're
Mm.
gonna, I think we're gonna just wrap this thing up. So as a reminder, anybody can jump on and record a call, ask a question about whatever. If you don't want to wait till the next office hours, I do believe I should be um, holding office hours next week. Let me just double check that is correct. Yes, there's nothing special going on next week, other than my kids starting school again, finally. No, they're
Oh,
great. We've had so much
nice.
fun. But yeah, so should be able to do office hours again. But if you don't want to wait, then the Call Kent podcast is a good place to ask questions. And oh yeah, I don't think that I mentioned this in office hours yet. But if you go to Epic Web Dev workshops, um, actually here, let me go to incognito and go to any one of these workshops that looks interesting. You can get that workshop by itself now. So if you don't have the budget for the all 5 workshops, or you just are interested in one workshop in particular, then you can get that workshop by itself. It is, of course, best value to get all of them, but if you really are just want to focus on a single workshop, then that's how you do that. And actually, yeah, except for the interviews with experts, that one you can't buy by itself. You got to get the whole thing for that. Um, and yeah, another cool thing, you'll notice we've got some new face here on tips. We've got Simon I can't say his last name, but Simon, he's great. You might be familiar
Yeah,
with him from some of his Tailwind videos when he was at over at Tailwind. But yeah, he's going to be teaching us some CSS as well, and it's awesome. He's got a workshop that he's working on right now. And then I actually have somebody else working on some stuff too about testing that you will find out in the next month or so. He'll publish an article. Actually, in the next week, I think he'll be publishing an article, and he'll be putting together a workshop
nice.
as well. So yeah, Epic Web is getting more epic. And then yeah, keep your calendar clear for mid-April. I'll be announcing something for that in the next week or so. Okay,
Cool.
great. Well, no other questions. We are about at our hour anyway, so that was fun. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you all in the future.
Thanks, Kent. Bye.
See you. Thank you.